Welcome to Rent or Die, the podcast where we break down the truth about real estate, property management, and building wealth. Whether you're a seasoned investor, an apartment building owner, or maybe you're thinking about getting into rental real estate, we've got the insights to help you win in the rental game. Thanks for tuning in. Let's jump into today's episode. All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rent or Die podcast. I'm Adam Butusov, owner and designated managing broker of Westmont Realty. And so I wanted to talk today about just apartment buildings in general. I guess I'm not really sure with this podcast, how to topic things. I want it to be authentic in terms of not asking AI to help me along in terms of like scripting and things like that. So I just said to myself, well, just talk about something and I thought about and also try to come up with something interesting, right? So that's why maybe this here I thought was interesting because in terms of commercial real estate and things like that, this is definitely a cool building. And got some sound. What am I doing wrong? Feedback. Okay. All right. So you can see, I'm not a professional podcaster. I'm a professional real estate broker. My headphones were just going bananas. So I wanted to be authentic, and I said, talk about something that's interesting, talk about something and that's what you see behind me here. We are taking a visit to this large apartment building that I sold twice, actually. Let me see, once, twice. Yeah, twice. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit, just talk about apartments. Maybe you guys are thinking about getting into the rental game yourself, or thinking about, or maybe you're already in the rental game and you want to buy some more apartment buildings. Maybe you're done and you want to get out of the apartment building. All of which, give me a call. Certainly, if you have an apartment building that you own, we always have people looking for apartments. And so I just thought this property, I was involved with it for many years, and I thought there were some interesting tales to be told, so to speak. So yeah, this building, it's a turn of the century, the last century building. It's nice. It really is. I like those canopies that are in front of all the entryways. So like here, over here, these are nice canopies, right? I think it makes the building look very prestigious, and it really makes the asset attractive. It's really a small touch that goes a super long way in terms of the overall beauty of the building. This building here, it was originally built, and I know it's changed since then, but it was originally built as a 6 flat, and a 12 flat in the back there. And then, after 100 years, things change and, that type of thing. But that's kind of the natural setup. The entryways all had the original oak doors whenever I was involved over there. Each entryway actually had what they call carriage rooms. So back then, in the early 1900s, mom would push a buggy and a carriage and park it in that front hallway where upon entering the building. So it's pretty cool. These buildings are really nice because the front hallways have all that original oak. A lot of the old is it called not mezzanine? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna think about it. But it has all that original tile, and it's gonna stick in my mind. It's like having a song that you can't think of. But when you walk in there, you have these beautiful staircases that go all the way up, and then you have skylights in the hallways too. So that's really nice. This building here was uh, it was both easy to manage and then also hard to manage at the same time. It's near the metro station, so it was always easy to rent. So the rental part was pretty straightforward. And whether it was an updated unit or an old vintage unit, there was always a market and a demand for these apartments so nearby the metro station. And what we would do, um, and I guess there's been an evolution of rentals. Maybe I'm a little old because I can start talking about like the evolution of things, like where they started, how they changed, and where they are now. Um, and so a lot back then, all you had to do was run a newspaper ad. Then all you had to do was run a newspaper ad and maybe put on Craigslist. I don't know if you guys remember, Craigslist was a hot rental commodity before Zillow and Trulia. Trulia, I don't even think exists no more. And if it was definitely bought up by another company. But so we'd get the advertising out there, and then when people called, our tenant screening right off the bat, when people called, we would try to save some time. Do you have pets? Do you smoke? Are you working? And how's your credit? I mean, those were kind of the main the main questions. And if one owner absolutely would not allow any pets whatsoever, the original owner that I knew, who actually taught me everything I know about property management, a real beautiful human being named Jack. But he never wanted pets on in the property because for a variety of reasons, pets do cause all kinds of problems. Nowadays it seems like everywhere allows pets. Pretty much. I mean, not everywhere, but a great vast majority of apartments are allowing pets nowadays. It seems like everybody has one. So we would ask, those questions. Do you smoke? Do you work? How's your credit? And uh, that type of thing. So then the tenant, we'd say, okay, everything sounds good. Why don't you come out and take a look at the unit? And then, I've probably met, I don't know, a couple hundred people or several hundred people in front of these canopies over the years. And so then we would meet them and then we would show them a unit. And so usually what they were looking at would be a very large one bedroom unit. Probably 900 square feet. And these units, oh my gosh, they were smoking. If you appreciate that vintage stuff, they had faux decorative fireplaces. They had the old sconces on the walls. Everything's plaster. Tons of woodwork and crown molding. And also the base, there was like a 4-inch base in the quarter round and that type of thing. So beautiful oak flooring. You had a lot of the original light fixtures, things like that. You had a ceramic kitchen, and you had like the old stoves were like 1957 Chevys. You looked at them and you were like holy cow, is this like an appliance show? But all those things, and in this building, it was 100% electric appliances. So those old things, though, those old appliances, I'll tell you what, they don't make them like they used to. I think I bought a $3,500 fridge for my house, and it broke within a couple of years. And then we were using it as basically like a pantry, which is, absurd. And then to fix it, there was like this giant a piece of the refrigerator that needed to be soldered. And I mean, you can't fix it yourself. The old appliances, when something went wrong, you could call up the appliance store and then buy the parts that you needed and just swap out the part. And we don't do it like that anymore. It's actually a shame. And so the old stoves, the old refrigerators, they lasted a super long time. And nowadays, we don't have that. But these units actually never had dishwashers. No in-unit laundry. You had like a central unit. So when people would come out, they're looking at a large one bedroom usually. But these buildings actually had some really incredible two bedrooms. I think they're two bedrooms. Now, you might get a little OCD here with buildings, and I do that. But the two bedrooms, they all had 19 windows. And so you had tons of natural light coming in, and a nice view and a nice place to live during the day. Just look out the window. You're kind of seeing the hubbub of people moving around and stuff like that. Really a nice vibe, particularly, and then I would say all seasons too, because in the winter you look outside, you kind of have a picturesque scene. This is definitely like at the tail end of the winter here, coming into spring. You can see the grass is all tore up, but in the summer, very green, very beautiful. In the winter, very picturesque. In the fall, just incredible, right? With the mature the mature trees and the mature vegetation, colors, and makes the place look really beautiful. So yeah, I mean, people come out. Usually, they would rent it, because they were everything. Whenever you price a rental properly, and there's a demand in the area, people rent those things. They rent them pretty quickly too, and then our rental process at the time, we used to do paper applications. You fill out the paper application, and then we would take it back. We would check check the person's credit, verify references, check to make sure that they haven't been evicted, things like that, and verify their source of income, and that's it. And then we would turn over the apartment. They would move in, and things would work out. I'm proud to say that I think for this building, I never put in a tenant that needed to be evicted. Not a single tenant, ever. Not one. So I think that's something that is very important to consider, that, like, look, if you do your homework, and I talked about this in the other podcast about, you can really pick up the vibe of people, but it's really simple. It's like a mathematical equation, if you will. You set the standard, and you have to do that nowadays. You can't be like, well, I'm going to judge it on a by person basis. That's not how that works. You have to, that's how you run afoul of like fair housing and things like that. So you just set up your criteria, and you make it very realistic, kind of what you would expect from a tenant who's living in your building, and you outline, appropriate rules and for your property, and you do your homework and do the checks, and then there's no problem. I mean, so we actually had a relatively a stringent credit requirement over here. So what would happen now, like I said, I never put anybody in this building all them years. It's like blowing my mind even thinking about it now, that needed to be evicted. So I guess it's like a badge of honor, I guess. But that doesn't mean things didn't go wrong for people, because certainly it did. Some people would lose their job. Some people would have other issues, and they would just move out rather than get their credit messed up or have evictions filed against them, that type of thing. Now, I want to say, though, that usually a lot of our business came from people who were having tenant problems already. So it's not unusual for us to get a call and have somebody say, hey, my tenant's not paying anymore, or I went to go collect my rent, and the tenant told me to, basically get screwed, right? Those things happen. And so we actually have a lot of foreclosure experience, to be honest with you. And then whenever I took over this building originally, we had to do some evictions there, but they weren't tenants that I put in there. So, and that's the difference from being like private landlord to having professional management, is on the private side, you're probably more than likely going to get burned more often than I guess I would, just because of the tools and resources I have as a broker, and as a building manager. So we pull credit, we can do all the checks, that type of thing. And so, I recommend not creating like unreasonable rules. The bottom line is with the rentals nowadays, particularly regarding fair housing and that, you don't run afoul if you create a set of requirements and then you apply those requirements evenly to every person that comes in. And so how does that work? Well, if you say your credit score requirement is, let's say, 675, right? And somebody comes in and you love them and their credit is 665 and you accept that tenant, your new requirement is 665 because you can't choose one person over the other, and that type of thing. It just has to be very straightforward. That's how things. The more standardization you could put into your systems and your processes related to your building, the less problems you'll have. So, so yeah, we did all these rentals. Would provide keys for the move-in. People would live there, then they would move out. We do the inspection. We always take pictures on the front end, and then we take pictures on the back end. Sometimes people stay several years too, so it's important to have those initial pictures, and then take pictures on the back end, and then follow Illinois state law to return security deposits in a timely fashion, that type of thing. And so we don't keep monies. We never have. Owners always kept all their monies. So usually, like when it's time for rents and things like that, those monies are going directly to the owner. Especially nowadays with the electronic stuff, it just goes right to the owner. Like, tenant pays rent, nice and easy, right? And it goes directly to the owner, and owners maintain their own monies, and then pay their own expenses as they come up. So we facilitate everything on the management side to get the people in, and then we just basically invoice owners to make sure that that we get paid, that type of thing. And then the rules with the contractors, you have to pay. You have to pay the contractors in a timely fashion. It has to be very reasonable, and that way prompt payment results in prompt service with a lot of these guys and gals who come out and do work at the property, right? And we like to use them everywhere, not just on a single property. Like if you have one unit, right, and you don't pay, and the guy's not going to come back out to our, let's say, 30 unit that we have. Yeah, there's an issue. There's a big, you have to pay people. That's the agreement. So, and then otherwise we have to pay the people because we're not gonna. If we have people come out, we're not gonna watch them get burned or whatever. Okay, so I'm digressing a little bit. Let's talk about the building though. Okay, so this building's super cool, huh? I mean, good looking building. If you look at the roof line, we actually replaced the roof over there. The owner contracted with a good company. It was actually Waukegan Roofing that came out and did that roof. And it was, let me see if I could remember, it was a Bridgestone Firestone product. It was, let me see, it was a TPO roof, so it's all white and reflective up top. Very nice, made of rubber, super low maintenance, 20-year warranty. Replaced all the vents with like J vents on the roof. And then something to note about these buildings, whenever, usually they're all tar and rubber or modified bitumen, that type of thing. So all these roofing systems, a lot of times you could actually nurse a roofing system for 15 years. All you got to do is get up there every year and do the work and tar the roof or tar the areas where there's potential breakdowns. It's really easy actually. You just take a can of tar up there and you do it. I've actually done it myself on a number of occasions, so I'm not that handy, to be honest with you. So yeah, but whenever you replace those roofs, a lot of times those parapet walls up there need tuck pointing, and water's gotten in there over the years, so on and so forth. But yeah, so really great property here. So very steady with the cash flow. Let's talk a little bit about the maintenance. Now, maintenance can be a real challenge, particularly in these buildings specifically, right? Usually you have an old, like in this case, I think it was a Kwani 4 million BTU stainless pure steel boiler. This one had a one pipe system, which is kind of unusual. But you had that single boiler heating the whole entire building. And so this building at one point heated off of basically two thermostats. One of the thermostats was, let's see if I can, right there in this unit. And the other one was right up here in this unit right here. Beep, beep, beep. Yeah. And so you have two different sides of the building that you can toggle the thermostat depending on what's going on. Um, so that's a little bit of a challenge because we had a tenant one time in that far unit over there that they were cold. So what they did was they tried to heat their unit using the stove. And I'll tell you, I don't want to get into it, but it was one of those original tenants, and it shut off the heat for the whole building. So, like, surprise, you're getting, as a manager, you're getting 20 calls on it. Um, so yeah, the plumbing in these old buildings can be tough because a little secret, and I'll tell you, even if you're a home buyer, if you go into one of these like 1920s brick bungalows and the plumbing is still all steel galvanized, what happens is over time those pipes start out to be like this big, and then or like this, and then they eventually go shh. So if you end up dropping even like a piece of broccoli in the drain, it's backing the whole system up. And so, like, then rotting, it's a problem. And if that happens, let's say on the third floor, you have to rod the thing all the way out the building, right? So that's super annoying. And then also, like, a lot of times what'll happen is you'll have problems rotting. So you'll have to go into the building and sometimes even go to the unit below and then cut out the wall, the old plaster walls. A lot of these buildings are built like fortresses. They certainly don't make them like they used to. And then what you do is you just cut out the pipe, and then you put a mission coupling, a PVC, and another mission coupling, and replace what you can with the PVC, right? And then you have wall repairs and things like that. But nowadays it's just getting harder and harder to do things like that due to a lot of different regulations that exist. Nothing is simple with these buildings, particularly the older ones. So if you are interested in this type of building, you appreciate the aesthetics, you value history, you like those the original builds, like super large apartments, stuff like that. Just know ahead of time you have to have like a master's degree in apartment buildings, because it's definitely got some moving parts. If everything's old, right? Maybe you're going to come in and just, reno the place and just replace all the plumbing, replace all the electric and, stuff like that. And that's cool to do too. That'll make your life a lot easier. But if you're just going to fight it out in terms of the repairs, you're like, it's like a fight. You're going to be fighting every single day, Thanksgiving, guess what? Toilets are clogged, or something like that. This is just how the nature of the beast. But yeah, I mean, like for me, this was probably one of the best experiences of my life, just meeting the people in this building. And I met a lot of great people over here, particularly the original owners who, wow, I got it. Yeah, they great people. And so what happened? They exited. Okay, so when it was time to exit, what we did at that time, we said, all right, well, yeah, we'd love to sell the building. We'd appreciate the business, things like that, and we charged a flat rate. Okay, so this is where our commission becomes like super super positive, right? So for this one, and this is the thing about these real estate companies, they're like, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think they're insane. I mean, because we weren't ever, like, you shouldn't try to get rich off of a single deal. Like, why would you do that, So I kind of knew people that were looking in the area. I always know people looking for apartment buildings pretty much. And so, yeah, if you have an apartment building, just give me a shout. Let me know what you have. And let's see if we can get together and do something. We always appreciate the business. But for this one here, So I charged 50 grand is what I charged, just a flat $50,000 fee. The price of this one, I think it was 3.1 million, right in that range. I think that's the right number. Um, and and so I knew somebody who was looking at the time. I just called them up, said, "Hey, I think that you've got a beautiful building over here. Come check it out." They were interested in doing the work, the value add part of it, which you kind of have to have a passion for that too, right? So I called my buddy, and I brought him to my other buddy, and we ended up doing a deal. So we only charged 50 grand. At the end, whenever I got paid for it, I felt like it was really worth it for on my end, like to get the 50 grand, right? I mean, it's not rocket science. Now, some brokers, what they would do is they would have came in here and said, okay, all right, it has to be 4%, it has to be 5%, it has to be 3%, it has to be. I mean, I'm just like, let's just be reasonable, folks. Let's get together, do a deal. Everyone's happy, that type of thing. So yeah, I thought the 50 grand was a pretty fair shake. Um, we represented the seller at that time. Buyer was represented by his lawyer, which is another way to go about doing things. Actually, the buyer is also a licensed real estate broker. At that time, this is all old stuff here. They're no longer here with this property. And so yeah, sometimes I get hired by real estate brokers. I think that's kind of interesting too. I've actually done a lot of deals on behalf of other real estate brokers. So for whatever reason, other real estate brokers hire me to do their commercial real estate. And that's including, and I'll just say as an example, I had a Remax office one time hire me to do their commercial leasing for them, because they were pretty much residential brokers. But yeah, I think that's cool. I think it's cool, and I think it's a reflection of like professionalism. Uh, if you're not an expert in a particular area in real estate, you shouldn't be working within it. It's kind of, it's a great way to get hurt financially, or get put in a legal position that you're not going to be comfortable with long term. So yeah, that's it really. And then from there, the new owner came in, did a renovation and that type of thing. Um, it went really well, and then I think what happened, and I'm cutting out a lot of details here, is I entered into one of the most complex real estate transactions I had ever been in. It actually ended up being, so we sold this building again. I think it was like for 4.8 million a few years later. So it's very profitable, right? The guy's collecting all this rent for a few years, producing like lots of cash flow. The thing made a lot of sense, did the reno, and then bam, out at 4.8. And at that time, though, it had turned into, it was actually a Freddie Mac is a type of commercial financing for multifamily. It turned into a Freddie Mac assumption deal. So what we did for the new buyer coming in was we had that buyer assume the Freddie Mac loan that my guy had. And so with that said, it ended up being pretty complex because, and I'll caution everybody on these loans. Sometimes it's better just to go into the bank and get yourself a loan, right? Because they sell these loans and they don't do too much due diligence on the front end, but then on the back end, they actually reinstigate a due diligence process. On this case, on the seller, which is they have attorneys from different states or multiple law groups that are now, in the deal, and it just adds a layer of complexity to it. And so hey, that's that's the world of real estate and high finance, right? Yeah, that's it. So we sold it for 4.8. In that deal, I think we charged 2% on that deal, and we ended up cooperating with a broker, and then splitting it with them. So we collected 1% on that deal, so another 48,000. And then on the flip side, we paid him whatever his 1% was or whatever. And we thought we were happy with that too, right? And so during the span of this, and this for any brokers listening who might want to work at Westmont Realty with us, the cool thing is we got paid for rentals all the way through. We get paid for property management all the way through. And so it becomes like a lucrative transaction, for me personally, I just can't overemphasize, and this is why a lot of brokers, it is relationship built stuff, right? Yeah, I won't even talk about it because I love my friends. I love the people I work with. I genuinely care about them. So I don't want to, get in all my feelings here. But these are people who I very much care about and that type of thing. So yeah, it's a really nice experience, especially so for those brokers coming on. When you do a nice job for people, you care for people, you are really honestly looking out for them and thinking about them and devoting your brain to them and and really checking things, right? And always, and I can't say client first has a real meaning to it. Client first. Under no circumstances does anything ever go against the person you're representing. That reminds me, actually, when we sold it the first time, I think we represented the buyer. The seller represented himself, right? And so when we're representing the buyer, though, even though we've known the seller, client first, we pick sides, right? We instantly pick sides. And then we deliver. And I've got some funny stories about that along the way. But it has to be very credible, right? Like nobody's messing around. So yeah, it's just been a joy with this property. What else can I say about it? That's really about it. So yeah. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on about this apartment building. Maybe I'd like to talk a little bit about, let's see. I can't really think of it for this one. That's really about it. So thanks for listening. If you have a chance to go onto our YouTube page and the podcast, that'd be really cool. Or if you're digesting it from Amazon, Apple, Spotify, anywhere like that, any sort of subscribes, things like that goes a long way. Helps me out. I have to record a certain amount of podcasts before I can, do other things. So I wanna hit some of these targets, and I don't want it to look like I'm standing here by myself. So if you guys like the video, it's appreciated. Like the Facebook post, that type of thing. And that's it. So all right, guys, take it easy, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much. Bye. All right, that's it for this episode of Rent or Die. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who needs to hear this. Got a wild landlord or tenant story? Hit me up. I'd love to feature it on the show. You can email it to vetshopcustomercare@gmail.com. Again, that's vetshopcustomercare@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.